Thanks everyone for coming. I'd just like to let the music rock and roll with the slides, but I guess we'll just roll with it. So I love to look at images. I love to look at patterns and textures and colors, and I photograph events all over creation, and this was one from a half marathon down in Manchester a couple years ago, and I just loved the colors and the compression of the image and the people in it and the flags. And sometimes it's about focusing in on just one creature, one tree, one image, and just looking at details and color and light. And you know, it doesn't always have to be about sunlight and bright colors. Sometimes cloudy days, sometimes rainy days are magical. And I also like to think about still photography not just as static images, but I like to play with time, that fourth dimension, and just see what comes of it, because you never quite know how it's going to turn out. This was from a whitewater event down in Jamaica, Vermont years ago. And again, I love the colors. Again, time, not just capturing something static moment, but in this case, leave the shutter open for a while, hold still, get yourself, and just see what happens. It's fun to experiment. And I love just the balance of light and the sparks and the texture and things like that you can't always set up in a studio. They just kind of happen. Again, rainy day, motion. People are often striving for everything to be in perfectly clear, crisp focus, but sometimes a little blurriness and a little motion is a fun thing. Antique cars running through the center of town, and you know, a lot of it's about just showing up for life and see what's available and having a camera with you. Hill climb event, I loved this moment. This guy's little children were racing along to the finish line with him, and I just loved capturing that moment. You know, nothing much in the background, real tight focus, real tight cropping on that, and that's a big part of what I like to do, is getting right in there. This was from the triathlon championships down at the waterfront a couple of years ago, and I deliberately made sure that only the runner was in focus and the rest went blurry. I was thrilled that the wind was blowing the flags like that, and I captured her just where I wanted her to be. Just love the color. Sunset as the ice breaks up down at the waterfront. You know, we've all been down there for sunset, beautiful place, but trying to show things a little differently than people might see them. And not everyone goes down there on those cold nights as the sun's dropping below the horizon. Again, I love the patterns and the texture and the light. And then contrasting that with a very urban environment, and I love the clarity and the sharpness and the intensity of all these different patterns. And it's something, again, that I look for a lot. Very, very tight cropping and magical patterns. You just never know. It can be something as simple as traffic lights. And a lot of times it's about serendipity in life and just being prepared and having your radar up so you see these things. I was driving down this road and these creatures just appeared. I didn't pose that. It wasn't at a farm where the animals are used to seeing people. They were just out there in the street. And I loved it with the cow in the background. Again, you know, a famous photographer once said, if your pictures aren't good enough, then you're not close enough. And the challenge is, how do you get close enough without intruding in the scene, intruding upon people or animals? And I love this image, just the clarity of it. Again, getting in there, getting tight, not a lot of background, not a lot of disruption, just focusing right in on what's important. And that's what I try to bring to my images, is a different sort of perspective on things. And this was in a wood shop, a machine shop, and I just had a chance to explore a little bit, and I loved, again, the soft light and the textures and the difference between the steel and the wood. And a lot of it's just being open, being aware of what's around you. This was a parade, clearly, but I had timed this one just right. Again, I was thrilled that the wind was blowing the flags. I wanted him centered right under that peak, and he happened to hold the flag out, and you know, you have to grab the moment because it disappears rapidly. Again, playing with time, playing with color, fireworks down at the waterfront. It's tough to do, and it's fun to play around and see what you get. And sometimes photography is just about that exploration of seeing what you can get. I have volunteered on 2 different fire departments. We do a lot of drills. We respond to a lot of events. And here we were practicing extrication drills, cutting a car apart late at night under the spotlights. And again, I love the light and the texture and the color. And one thing I want to say is, it's as much as I love technical things and gear, and this was again tractor parade where they decorated the tractors with Christmas lights. And again, playing with time, playing with color. It's not always about making things, crystal clear and tack sharp. And I just love the motion and the color of those lights. And a lot of these pictures were taken with quality pocket cameras. It's not all about having high-end technology and fancy cameras and lots of megapixels and big lenses. This was at the start of the Boston Marathon, and I just wanted to focus right on their shoes and not just on the runners like everyone else does. Fire scene. I entered this in a photo contest. They didn't score it very highly because they thought his skin tone, it was too red. It wasn't realistic enough. And they had no idea how many red lights were flying around with 50 fire trucks and 20 different fire companies responding to this call. I still love the light and the texture. And this image, we had a historic church fire, and to me, this represented all sorts of things. But one thing it represented in terms of photography was always turn around behind you. Don't always think that the event is happening where you think it is, because this was happening behind me. And thank you very much for being here.